when people say, 5 kids and this and that, how do you do that? And it's like, what, do you think I'm like a Superman? Like, it is God. You have to be able to see that God wants to move in all of our life. And if we do anything good, it's because of Him. He's knocking at our door, and we've got to let Him in.
Yeah. If I have a sense that I'm doing God's will, He's called me to this, we're doing our best, doing God's will, that He's going to help me, and He's going to keep me from getting tired, He's going to keep me from losing my patience, He's going to keep us from being financially, under what we need to be, and these kind of things. But if I'm not doing what you said, if I'm not doing Him on a regular basis, then it's very easy for me to feel like you are not coming through.
Yeah.
Like I'm running on fumes here.
Right.
I'm about to die, and there's no end in sight, And the truth is, it's because I'm not going to Him on a daily basis to receive what He's given, but also to see with His eyes.
Yeah. To see that time of poor, that time of sickness, that time where it's not better but it's worse.
Right.
And He's still there.
Yeah.
I think that's the beauty, like in the church calendar, we're getting close to Lent, and we're seeing that there is this time of there's this journey that we have to enter into at times in the desert.
Right.
But don't mumble or grumble or complain in that desert, knowing that God's got a plan through that. And here's the other paradox, I guess, in marriage. How do we see that and to remember that it's through Good Friday that we get to Easter Sunday?
I think we have to experience it. I think, to be honest with this, to some extent, and it can be in little ways. I think in little ways we can begin to experience it. For instance, like, before I decide that I'm going to take a job that's going to be more fulfilling or more whatever, that's going to pay half, before I can do something like that, maybe, it's got to be something like, I'm going to get up instead of my wife when the baby cries.
Yeah.
Even though I've been up 3 times and she's been up twice.
Yes.
I'm going to get up this time, even though I got to get up early for work or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go in there and I'm not going to be ticked off at him for crying. Like, I'm going to go in there and just be and appreciate the fact that he's a cute kid.
Yeah.
Like something as small as that.
Yeah.
And then to wake up the next day and realize, I'm not dead.
Yeah.
I'm not going to die.
Right.
And to begin to see in small ways how much better I feel about that kid.
Yes.
How much better I feel about my spouse.
And myself.
And myself.
Yeah.
When I'm willing to enter in.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more worth it. Like when I'm trying to play the measurements game.
Oh my goodness, yeah.
And when I'm trying to measure how much I can give.
I've done these things.
Yes.
Right? And you haven't, and so now here I am, the load is on me.
That's right.
You need to do all this. It's your turn.
Yeah. I'll do that with my wife. I'll do that with God,
Yeah.
And when I'm trying to decide, how much can I give? How much can this tank, how much do I have left in my tank?
Right.
It is always a battle for survival.
Yeah.
And it's miserable.
Yeah.
It's miserable. But if I'm willing to just lose the tank, I don't care how much, care how much I've got in the tank, especially when it comes to love, then my ability to enter in, if I'm willing to enter in, the joy that comes
through that
from that kid's fulfillment, the joy that comes from seeing how my wife feels when she knows that she's not alone when it comes to nighttime stuff, the joy that comes from my kid when he knows that I know exactly what he feels when he's telling me about the Super Bowl one more time, something like that. Like to be able to that provides me with fuel. Yeah. That provides me with a recognition, and I forget how empty I am. Yeah. It's the same thing like when we're playing sports as kids and we're in high school and stuff like that. When I'm winning, I forget how much I've been sweating. Right. When I'm doing well, when I'm successful, I forget how much I've had to put into this.
Right. Right. Exactly. But when the
totally
pain, when we're losing, when we feel like we're losing, when it's not going our way, we see all the failures and all the shortcomings and all that stuff starts popping up, and then
the demands of my coach.
Exactly. And then we start making excuses.
That's right.
And we don't see that it's every champion has entered into that drought, that suffering, and it's the ones who went through it, that came out the other side holding the trophy. That's not the ones who quit there, they never hold that trophy. Everyone got to that point. It's the champions that went through it. Yeah. And everybody has that past of being able to have to see, okay, you're asking something of me, Lord, that's beyond me. And then I think when you realize that's when God can do so much more in our life. That's like when people say, 5 kids and this and that, how do you do that? And it's like, what, do you think I'm like a Superman? Like, it is God. It truly is God. But you have to be able to see that God wants to move in all of our life. And if we do anything good, it's because of Him. And He wants to do good in our life, but will you allow Him? Will you trust Him? Because He's knocking at our door. And we've got to let Him in. Yeah. And that once we let Him in and we realize how much He has has a place in our life, has a desire for our happiness and a fulfillment that can be now. We can find some strength and grace here now. Man, it's like then you're like, what else do you want me to do, Lord? You realize his yoke is not heavy.
Right. I think part of it is we tend to think that the guy's going to help. He's going to give me the big picture. And he's going to say, hey, look, here's where you see, obviously you're weak.
Right.
Here's how I'm going to help.
Right.
And you've measured that. You can go ahead and deposit that and live off of that.
Yeah.
The truth is, and people ask us the same thing, how you have all these kids, how you do what you do. It's like, I just show up.
Yeah.
Recognizing that, like, it's not just me. It's not just my wife.
Yeah.
My kids are involved in the process. They have their own little capital lives too.
Yeah.
They have their own little wills.
That's right.
And this kind of thing, their own minds and hearts. And so it is, if I was to try to take control of this and say, I've got it under control, everybody would laugh at me.
Yeah.
Everybody in that house would laugh at me because they know it's ridiculous. And so even the little babies, they know I don't have control.
Right.
And so to recognize that, like, God is how God operates in that is in the context of the mess. Not in the pre-planning, not in the big picture, but very much in the mess. In the ridiculousness.
Yeah, it's like you find disappointment whether you think that the other is going to be your ultimate source of happiness and fulfillment, or you disappoint yourself when realizing that you don't have everything that you need on your own.
That's right.
And so again, it comes back to how are we allowing God to be God in our life? Let God be God.
Right.
And how are we serving Him?
Yeah.
A friend of mine said, the first commandment is don't become an atheist. It's not that. It's don't put other gods before me. Because
great.
we're going to serve something. We're going to turn to something to worship, and it might even be ourselves.
Right.
It might be the successes that we're striving for, but we're lacking that call to surrender to a God who wants to fill our hearts and wants to fulfill our desires and wants to give us a joy-filled marriage. But that's not to say there's not going to be challenges.
That's right.
It's just going to be saying that when we have those challenges, that He's not going to abandon us. He's going to walk us through it.
I think a key to that is experiencing forgiveness from God and from our spouses, obviously, too. And recognizing, like, because when we come up against I know for me, when I come up against my weakness, or I screw up, or I do something stupid, or I lose patience with the kids or whatever, like, I am so quick to come up with a good reason why that was just the way it needed to be.
Yeah.
That, like, it's not really my fault, it's their fault, it's my wife's fault, it's my kid's fault, And what that means is that I will never improve.
Yeah.
That's never going to get fixed.
Yeah.
Because I'm not really taking a look at it. And the reason I'm not taking a look at it is because I'm worried what that looks like. If I'm weak in that, then what does that mean? For the future? What does that mean for me as a father and as a husband? That can't be the case, and so I just deny it. As opposed to seeing it for what it is, right? And seeing what God can do with that. Is He willing to forgive the fact that I'm just a selfish jerk sometimes, right? That I don't have patience, that I'm worried about me, that I act like a 5-year-old, and these kind of things. Like, what can God do with that?
Right.
Now, should I do what I can do? Of course, I should do what I can do to fix it. But at the same time, like, I am limited in my capacities, in the same way that, like, my body can't do what it used to do anymore. And that is so discouraging and depressing.
Right.
Because I'm getting old, and, like, that's discouraging. Am I going to allow that discouragement and the feeling like I can't do those things means that I'm less of a man? What is it that I am being called to do? And ultimately, if God's not a part of that, I'm going to go through some really bad midlife crisis, right around the corner. But, like, if God's a part of it, I begin to recognize my value in His eyes.
That's right.
I begin to recognize what it is that He's calling me to and what it is that He supplies for me to do that. And a lot of that requires, going back to that, that's an analogy, but the forgiveness aspect, what does it really mean to be forgiven by God? Is He just like, okay, I'm not going to punish you for that.
Right.
You better not do it again, Or is it that He is taking it and be like, this is mine now.
Yeah.
And your weaknesses belong to me. Therefore, my strength belongs to you. And I think that's the aspect we miss. If my weakness belongs to Him, then what He's saying is, my strength belongs to you. Yeah. Do I know what that feels like?
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, I think that ends up being the key that we end up missing more often than not.
Yeah.
Is being able to say, like, being forgiven means He's got this.